The last quiz you took, you graphed lines with a t-chart or a table of values, whatever you want to call it. And now we're going to graph these equations and functions with intercepts. There are two different intercepts. There is an x-intercept and there is a y-intercept. We'll figure out how to find both of those. So there's an x-intercept and a y-intercept. For the x-intercept, what you do to find that, what it is the where the line crosses the x-axis. So it's where the line crosses the x-axis. So this point here is the x-intercept. So it's the point -4, 0. Whenever you have an x-intercept, it's going to be along this x-axis, and y value is always going to be 0. Always, always, always 0. So for your x-intercept, y is always 0 because it's on the x-axis. If the point is on the x-axis, the y value is 0. And I'm going to write that in there. So it's on the x-axis, so y is equal to 0, and we're going to come back to that line. Then there's the y-intercept. Just like the x-intercept, the y-intercept is on the y-axis. So the y-intercept, for this one, we don't go left or right at all. And we go up 9. So the y-intercept is on the y-axis. If a point is on the y-axis, then that means x is going to be 0. So if a point is on the y-axis, then x is going to be equal to 0. If the point is on the x-axis, y is going to be equal to 0. And we'll come back to that in a little bit. So number 1, Greg drained the water from his baby's bathtub. The graph shows the relationship between the amount of water left in the tub in liters and how much time has passed since Glenn started the tub. So it's important to be able to read a graph because it comes up, well, not just because it comes up frequently in standardized tests, but it's also an important skill to know so you can look at graphs and make an informed decision. So this time is the x-axis and the water in liters is the y-axis. So at 1 minute, this water had 12 liters of water. At 2 minutes, 9 liters, 3 minutes, 6 liters. So as the time is going up, y is coming down. So as x increases, y decreases. The line is going down. And it makes sense because he's draining the water from his bathtub. Number 1 says, how much water was in the bathtub when Glenn started draining? That means that time is equal to 0. So time is x, so that's where it's equal to 0. So at time 0, there was 15 liters. That is the y-intercept. The y-intercept is always the beginning of whatever is happening on the graph. So the y-intercept is always on the y-axis, and it's always when x is equal to 0. Always, always, always. Then we can look at, sorry, my daughter just texted me. I forgot to put off my ringer. Then we can look at the x-intercept. So the x-intercept is that point there. Sorry, I jumped ahead of myself. It says how much, or we're going to look at part C. How long does it take to drain the tub? So that is when the water is equal to 0, which is the y value is equal to 0. This point here is where y is equal to 0. So the water is equal to 0 at this point. And that's at time 5 minutes. Now, part B says how much water drains every 1 minute. So every 1 minute. So it went from 15 liters right here. Another minute that passes, that's 12 liters. Another minute that passes, that's 9 liters. Another minute that passes is 6 liters. So these are all decreasing by 3. And that's always going to be constant. We're going to learn about slopes, some of you might have, but that's always going to be constant. It's always going down 3 liters. It's not going to go down 3 liters in a minute and then down 4 and then down 7, then down 6 for this equation. It's always going to be going down in a in a linear fashion. So it drains 3 liters every minute and 6 liters every 2 minutes. Now we're actually going to go through and find the x and y intercepts. So going back up top, I see that the x-intercept is where y is equal to 0. And then the y-intercept is where x is equal to 0. So we're going to find both of those intercepts for each problem. We're going to find the x-intercept, which means that y is equal to 0, and we're going to find the y-intercept, which means x is equal to 0. So we find both of them. So we find both the x and the y. So I'm going to write x-intercept. And I know for the x-intercept, y is equal to 0 from up above. So that means what I'm going to do is substitute y is equal to 0 into that equation. So I get 2x plus 7 times 0 equals 28. And then I get 2x equals 28 and x is equal to 14. So if I make that an ordered pair, it's 14 and 0. This y goes here, y is 0 goes here, and x is 14 goes here. So that is my x-intercept. I'm going to plot that at 14, 0. Darn it, it goes off the graph. Just pretend it's over here. Sorry about that. Didn't realize it goes off the graph. So that is my x-intercept when y is equal to 0. My y-intercept is when x is equal to 0. So my y-intercept is when x is equal to 0. So I substitute x equals 0 into that equation. So I get 2 times 0 plus 7y is equal to 28. So 7y is equal to 28 and y is equal to 4. So in this point, x is 0 and y is 4. So that point is on the y-axis, 0, 4. The y-intercept is on the y-axis where x is equal to 0. The x-intercept is on the x-axis where y is equal to 0. And then I can draw a line through those 2 points. So what I'm going to do is go through and do that for all the other ones for the next 5 on the next video, and then you can do the practice work and check your answers.